Today's lesson is on fractional exponents and radicals. So when we're talking about fractional exponents, we're talking about something like x to the power of 1 over n, or x to the power of m over n would also be an acceptable one if I had x to the m over n would also be considered what we're looking at. So this one here, we have x to the 1 over n is equal to n root x. So your denominator becomes an index. Your numerator becomes an exponent. So in this case here, I could have x, and it's going to have a square root to the n. And then this would be to the power of m. So the whole thing to the power of m. Or you can have it as n root x to the power of m underneath. Either way is fine. So let's evaluate a couple of these questions. Here we have 1,000 to the 1 over 3, where n is equal to 3. So I'm going to put 3 in my index, take the square root, the cube root of 1,000. When we're doing this, in your notes, you will have a list of cube roots. You'll have a list of fourth roots. You'll have perfect squares. Take a look at your chart, and you're going to find that the cube root of 1,000 is 10. So 10 to the power of 3 is 1,000. That's what we mean by using without a calculator. We're just going to take a look at that chart that you were given. So 0.25 to the 1/2, 2 becomes my index. So I have a square root of 0.25. When I take the square root of that, it's a decimal, it can be kind of tricky. So what we're going to do is we're going to take the square root of the number behind the decimal. It's 25. We know the square root of 25 is 5. So all we're going to do is we're going to take 5 and we're going to move it one decimal place. So the square root of 0.25 is going to be 0.5. Now I have negative 8 to the 1 over 3. So I'm going to take the cube root of negative 8. If I look at my cube chart, 8, the cube root of 8 is going to give me 2. This one here is negative, which means that my answer is also going to be negative. If this was, say, a fourth power, we might have a little tricky situation on our hands because you can never have a negative number when you have an even exponent or an even radical index, okay? So 16 over 81 to the 1/4 means I'm going to take the fourth root of 16 over 81. Now, there are laws of exponents that tell me I can break this apart. I can take the fourth root of 16 and divide it by the fourth root of 81, just like our multiplication one where we can take apart our radical and take one number, multiply by another number, and separate them using that. We can do the same thing here. So if I take this and separate it, I'm going to get the fourth root of 16 over the fourth root of 81, and it's going to give me 2 over 3. So the 2 to the power of 4 is 16, so the fourth root of 16 is 2. 3 to the power of 4 is 81, so the fourth root of 81 is 3. Now, here's the law I was telling you about. We have m over n, so that's the same thing as x, so 1 over n to the m is equal to n root x to the power of m, or you can have the power underneath of your radical sign. Either one is acceptable. So write 26 2/5 in a radical form two ways. So the two ways you can write it are the following: n root x to the m and n root x to the power of m underneath of the radical. That's two separate ways you can write this. So this one, we can have the fifth root of 26 all to the power of 2, or I can have 26 to the power of 2 and take the fifth root of the whole thing. We're going to write the following in exponent form. So that means x to the power of m over n. So 6, the square root of the 6 to the power of 5. So my n is 2, my m is 5. So n is always your index, m is your exponent. So I should wind up with 6 to the power of 5 over 2. In this case here, my x value is 19, my m is 3 because it's my exponent, my n is 4 because it's my index, and I'm going to wind up with an answer of 19 to the power of 3 over 4. Remember, it's always m over n. Evaluate the following power. So evaluating a power means that we are taking it and turning it from a fractional form to this form and then simplifying it as much as we possibly can. So in this case here, I'm taking the square root because 2 is my index, and I'm of 0.01, and I'm going to cube it. So when I take the square root of 0.01, I get 0.1. You can type that in your calculator, that's okay. Now I want to take and I want to cube that number, and I'm going to get 0.001. So you can use your calculator. First thing you're going to do is you're going to type in the square root of 0.01. You're going to hit the equals button, and then you're going to hit that y to the x button and make sure that your exponent is 3. Same thing goes for this question here. We have negative 27 to the 4 over 3. So I'm going to take the cubed root, because the bottom number is my index, of negative 27 to the power of 4. I like to write the power of 4 after the fact all the time, just because I find it easier to deal with that way. So the cubed root of negative 27 is negative 3. Don't forget, because it's negative underneath here, it needs to be negative when you pull it out. So I have negative 3 to the power of 4, which is going to give me 81. This is positive because this is an even number exponent, which means I'm going to have an even number of negative integers being multiplied together. 81 to the 3 over 4, I'm going to take the 4th root of 81, and then I'm going to cube that number. So 4th root of 81 cubed, 4th root of 81 is 3. 3 cubed is now what I'm left with, and 3 cubed is 27. All right, I have 0.75 to the 1.2. Now, we don't know how to deal with exponents that are decimals. I don't like decimal exponents, so what we're going to do is we're going to turn this decimal into a fraction. So 1.2 is what is a fraction? It's going to be 1 and 2 over 10. So you're going to keep your whole number as a whole number. The number behind it, if it is 1 decimal place behind, it's over 10. 2 decimal places, it's over 100, and so on and so forth. So 1 over 2 over 10 is the same thing as 1 and 1 over 5, because we need to reduce this fraction first. Now I'm going to take this fraction here. It's a mixed fraction. I'm going to turn it into an entire fraction, so an improper fraction. So you're going to 1 times 5 plus 1 is 6 over 5. So now I have 0.75 to the 6 over 5, which means I'm going to take the 5th root of 0.75, and then I'm going to put that to the power of 6. When I do that, I get the following, 0.708. So 5th root in your calculator of 0.75, hit the equals button, y to the x, 6, hit the equals button, you should get this number here.